Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for another deep dive, and let's be honest, 2024,
Oh, yeah.
it was a lot tea. So much intense news globally and here at home.
Totally.
But today, we're doing things a little differently.
Huh?
We're taking a break from all the doom and
A
gloom.
little bit of a palate cleanser.
Exactly. And we're going to dig into some good news that you might have missed last year.
Because there was good news.
There was. We actually have two great sources for this deep dive. So first up, we've got a segment from CBS Sunday Morning called Good News You May Have Missed in 2024. And then
Okay.
we're going to take a look at an online article from Market Madhouse. It's titled Important News Stories You Missed in 2024. Get ready to be surprised,
I read it.
because these are the stories that almost got away.
I am excited about this. It's so easy to get bummed down in all the negative stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But you know what? There are some pretty incredible things happening
There were.
under the surface.
And speaking of incredible things happening, remember those murder hornets
Oh.
that invaded Washington State?
Of course. Like it was yesterday.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Everyone was freaking out about the potential impact on honeybees.
Rightfully so. I mean,
Yeah.
that could have been devastating.
Those headlines were scary. It felt like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Absolutely. Giant hornets wreaking havoc. But it wasn't just hype, though.
Right.
They really could have been a serious problem for the honeybee population. Not just that, but
Oh, yeah.
those things, they pack a nasty sting.
Yeah, they do.
And they can even be dangerous to us, to humans.
Yeah. So what happened?
Well,
Did they just take over?
they did not, thankfully. CBS Sunday Morning actually highlighted how successful the eradication efforts were. I mean, scientists, government agencies,
Wow.
and even just everyday people, they all worked together.
That's amazing.
It was a real team effort. They used traps and set up tip lines so people could report sightings.
I remember that.
They even attached tiny tracking devices to the hornets themselves.
Oh, wow. Talk about high-tech pest control.
Right. It was incredible, and it really paid off. By December of 2024,
Okay.
the murder hornets were officially eradicated from the U.S.
That's fantastic. What a victory.
It really is a huge victory for science and collaboration. I think one entomologist even called it Humanity 1, Nightmare 0, which,
I love that.
yeah,
That's the kind of news we need more of.
definitely.
Speaking of victories, did you know that drug overdose deaths actually dropped significantly in 2024?
You know what? That's a good point. Yeah. I think a lot of people probably missed that story.
Yeah, it might come as a surprise considering everything else that was going on last year.
Yeah.
But the CDC actually reported a 17% decrease. So that's about 20,000 fewer deaths compared to the year before.
That's huge.
I know. And Dr. Magdalena Cerda from NYU Grossman School of Medicine, she called it the largest decline ever recorded.
Wow. That is remarkable.
It really is. What do you think contributed to such a positive shift?
Well, a few things, actually. I mean, first of all, I think increased access to naloxone definitely helped. That's the medication that can reverse an opioid overdose.
Right.
So that's definitely been a game changer. Also, there's this trend where people are shifting from injecting drugs to smoking them, which,
Okay.
that actually carries a lower risk of overdose. And there's another interesting thing, too. Drug use among young people actually decreased last year.
Oh, that's interesting. So it was kind of a perfect storm of positive things.
A lot of things working together. It's really encouraging.
Yeah.
But, it is important to remember that even with this decline, 90,000 deaths is still a tragically high number.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's progress, but there's obviously still a long way to go.
For sure.
Okay, let's switch gears for a second and talk about something a little lighter.
Okay.
Airports.
Mm.
Specifically, LaGuardia Airport in New York City. Remember how it was constantly ranked as the worst airport in America?
Oh, LaGuardia. The airport that time forgot.
Right.
It was rough.
I think even Joe Biden compared it to a third world country once, back in 2015.
Yeah, I think I remember that. It's funny now.
But I mean, honestly, he kind of had a point back then.
He wasn't wrong.
So get this, they completely transformed that place.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they built a brand new airport, piece by piece, right on top of the old one. And they did it all without ever shutting down operations.
Wow, that's incredible.
Isn't that amazing?
That's quite a feat of engineering and logistics.
It really is. The new LaGuardia is bright and spacious and filled with art. And get this,
Okay.
it actually functions efficiently. No more endless tarmac delays.
That's a big improvement. I'm almost tempted to book a flight just to see it.
Right, me too.
Maybe they can work some of that magic on JFK next.
One airport at a time, right?
Yeah, baby steps.
Okay, now let's talk about AI.
Ooh,
It
okay.
was obviously a big topic in 2024. A lot of the focus was on the potential risks and downsides.
Sure.
But the CBS Sunday Morning segment actually highlighted a really positive development in AI.
Okay,
It's called AlphaFold. Have you heard of this?
AlphaFold, yeah, rings a bell. Refresh my memory, though.
Okay, so AlphaFold
Okay.
is this really groundbreaking AI system developed by Google's DeepMind,
Okay.
and it can map the shapes of proteins.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't scientists, why is that so important?
Right. So basically, proteins are the building blocks of life, right?
Right.
And their shape determines how they function. And if a protein has the wrong shape,
Oh.
it can lead to all sorts of diseases. So understanding protein shapes is super crucial for developing new drugs and treatments.
So it's like AlphaFold is giving us a cheat sheet to understanding diseases?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so much faster and cheaper than previous methods. Like before AlphaFold,
Okay.
figuring out the shape of just one protein could take a year,
A year.
and it would cost about $100,000.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
I know.
So how does AlphaFold compare?
Get this, okay? In 2024,
Okay.
AlphaFold mapped the shapes of all 200 million known proteins.
Wait, all of them?
All of them.
That is amazing.
And Google made all of that data freely available to researchers all over the world.
So this is a big deal for the future of medicine.
Huge deal. It could totally revolutionize how we treat diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, malaria, you name it.
That's incredible.
It really is mind-blowing. And the creator of AlphaFold, John Jumper, he won the 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his work.
Well-deserved, I'd say. That's amazing.
Okay, so we've covered some incredible feats of science and human ingenuity. But our second source, the Market Madhouse article, it takes a little bit of a different approach.
Okay.
It focuses on some economic shifts that flew under the radar in 2024. You know, overshadowed by the election and the war in Gaza.
They're interesting.
Yeah.
Those were definitely attention-grabbing stories.
Totally. So these are stories that didn't necessarily make the front page.
Gotcha.
But they have the potential to significantly impact all of our lives.
Okay, I'm all ears. What did they miss? Where do we even start?
Well, one of the biggest things that they highlight is actually the decline of oil.
The decline of oil.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. I mean, oil prices were still pretty high in 2024, so.
Right. It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but there were actually some signs that the energy landscape is starting to shift.
Okay. I'm intrigued. So what were these signs they're talking about?
Well, for one thing, the World Bank actually forecast a surplus of oil in 2025,
Okay.
which could potentially drive prices down below $60 a barrel.
Wow, that's a big drop.
It is. And the main reason for this projected surplus is falling demand, particularly in China.
China. I thought their economy was still booming. Wouldn't they need more oil, not less?
You would think, right? But the article mentions that Chinese refinery production actually plummeted in 2024. Some refineries even went bankrupt.
Oh, that's a huge deal.
I know. It's a major shift because for years, China's been one of the biggest drivers of global oil demand.
Yeah, for sure.
So if demand in China's dropping, what's happening elsewhere?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So it's not just China. The article points out that Phillips 66, which is a major U.S. oil company, they're planning to shut down a massive refinery in California.
Really? So it seems like it's a global trend.
Yeah, it does.
So it really makes you wonder if drill, baby drill, is on its way out,
Right. As oil demand keeps falling.
That would be a major turning point.
It would. It definitely feels like a story to watch closely. What else did this Market Madhouse article uncover?
Well, they also talked about something that doesn't get a lot of attention, but it could have huge global repercussions, the fragility of the Russian economy.
Yeah, it's easy to kind of get tunnel vision on what's happening here in the U.S.
Totally.
And we hear bits and pieces about sanctions and the war in Ukraine. But I'm curious to get a clearer picture of what's actually happening over there.
Yeah, me too. So what did the article say?
Well, they quote the CEO of Rostec, which is a major Russian state-owned defense conglomerate. And he warned that many businesses in Russia are on the brink of bankruptcy because of crippling interest rates.
Crippling interest rates. Yikes, that sounds bad.
Yeah, it does.
What does that even mean for everyday people over there?
Well, imagine trying to get a loan to start a business or buy a house when interest rates are sky high. It becomes almost impossible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's what businesses in Russia are facing right now. and it's putting a huge strain on the entire economy.
So is this all connected to the war in Ukraine?
Absolutely. The war has led to high inflation, and it's led to those sky-high interest rates.
Yeah, okay.
The article even states that the Russian economy is at its weakest point since the 1990s, after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Wow. That puts things into perspective. So we've got declining oil demand on the one hand and a potentially collapsing Russian economy on the other. That sounds like a recipe for global economic upheaval.
Right. It's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah.
And it underscores how interconnected everything is.
Totally. Events in one part of the world can definitely create ripple effects everywhere else.
For sure. Speaking of ripple effects, let's talk about another industry that's facing some major disruption, the auto industry. And the disruptor in this case is Chinese electric vehicles.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
The Market Madhouse article focuses on the BYD Seagull, which is this small electric hatchback that's making waves in China. And what's really remarkable about this car is its price.
Okay, spill the tea. How cheap are we talking?
So the Seagull sells for around $9,500 in China.
Okay.
Now, to compare, the cheapest EV in the U.S., the Nissan Leaf,
Right.
that starts at almost $30,000.
Hold on. That's a ridiculous difference.
That's crazy, right?
How are they making electric cars so affordable?
Well, BYD has incredibly low production costs. According to the article, it's about 25% lower than their global competitors.
That's a massive advantage. I bet that's making some established car companies pretty nervous.
You bet. The article mentions that Volkswagen is already closing factories in Germany. And there are rumors that Nissan and Honda might even merge to try and stay competitive.
Wow. So are we witnessing the start of a major power shift in the global auto industry with China taking the lead?
It's definitely a possibility. And it's causing a lot of anxiety
Understandably.
among traditional automakers worldwide.
For sure.
Okay, let's shift gears one last time to a topic that hits a little closer to home. Income inequality in the U.S. It's obviously a growing concern.
Yeah, definitely.
And the Market Madhouse article highlights some pretty sobering statistics.
I believe it. What kind of stats are we talking about?
So they report that the wealthiest 1% of Americans
Okay.
held over $50 trillion in assets in the third quarter of 2024.
Wait, how much?
$50 trillion.
That's more than double the entire U.S. GDP.
I know. It's insane.
It's more than the GDPs of the U.S. and China combined.
Right. And Senator Bernie Sanders even went so far as to characterize the U.S. as an oligarchy.
Oligarchy. Wow.
Meaning a government ruled by the wealthy.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong statement.
It is, but if you look at the numbers, it's hard to argue with. And history shows us, time and again, that when the gap between the rich and everyone else becomes too wide, things can get really bad.
Yeah, it can lead to instability and unrest.
Exactly. Think about the French Revolution or the Russian Revolution.
Good points.
So it makes you wonder if we're heading down a similar path.
It's a question worth pondering, for sure. What are the long-term consequences of this extreme wealth concentration in the U.S.? It's something we all need to be thinking about.
Definitely a lot to digest today. From the eradication of murder hornets to the rise of Chinese EVs to the sobering reality of income inequality, it's been quite a deep dive.
It really has. But it's so important to remember that positive things are happening too, even if they don't always grab the headlines.
I totally agree. It's like that saying, good news travels slow, bad news has wings.
All right.
But today we're giving good news a jetpack.
Love it.
So from all the stories that we discussed, what stood out to you the most?
Ooh, that's a tough one. They were all pretty remarkable in their own way. But if I had to choose, I think I'd go with AlphaFold.
Yeah.
The potential of that technology is just mind-boggling.
Right. It's like science fiction becoming reality. Having the shapes of all those proteins mapped out and ready for researchers to use, it's almost too incredible to comprehend.
I know. Think about it this way. Scientists can potentially design drugs that are tailored to specific proteins,
Okay.
leading to more effective treatments with fewer side effects. Imagine a future where diseases like Alzheimer's are tackled at their root cause,
Wow.
thanks to this breakthrough.
You're right. It's even bigger than we initially said.
Right.
And it makes you realize just how much we can accomplish when brilliant minds come together and collaborate.
Absolutely. Speaking of collaboration, the eradication of those murder hornets was a great example of that too. It was a true victory, and it shows that even when faced with a daunting threat,
Yeah,
we can find solutions if we work together.
totally. It reminds us that those honeybees are worth fighting for.
Yes.
Not just for the ecosystem, but for our taste buds too. Imagine a world without honey.
No, that would be a tragedy. Okay, so we talked about some of the highlights, but
Yeah.
were there any stories that maybe raised some concerns for you?
Yeah, the stories about declining oil demand
Okay,
and the fragility of the Russian economy, they're both a bit unsettling
for sure.
because they point to potential instability in the global economic system.
Yeah, things could get really messy really fast.
Yeah, you have a point. It's like those calm before the storm
Yeah,
moments in a movie where everything seems fine on the surface, but you know something big is about to happen.
exactly. And it underscores the importance of being aware of these undercurrents and being prepared to adapt. We can't just bury our heads in the sand.
It all circles back to the importance of staying informed, doesn't it?
Totally.
We need to be aware of both the good and the bad news
Yes.
to understand the full picture.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. And a balanced perspective really helps us navigate the complexities of the world.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to circle back to the story about income inequality in the U.S.
Okay.
That statistic about the wealthiest 1% holding over $50 trillion in assets, it was mind-blowing.
It is a truly staggering figure, and it raises some serious questions about the fairness and sustainability of our current economic system.
Right. If so much wealth is concentrated in the hands of so few, doesn't that limit opportunities for everyone else?
It definitely
It
can.
seems like a recipe for social unrest.
Yeah, when people feel like the system is rigged against them, that's when things can start to break down.
So what can we even do about it? Is there any way to bridge this massive wealth gap?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are a lot of different ideas out there, from progressive taxation to investing in education and social programs, but it's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It sounds like there's no easy fix, but it's definitely a conversation we need to keep having.
I agree. It's a complex issue with far-reaching consequences, and it deserves our attention.
You know, it's interesting to think about how all these stories connect back to that idea of human ingenuity we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's tackling murder hornets or developing groundbreaking AI or addressing economic inequality, we have the potential to solve these challenges. It's if we apply ourselves.
I love that you're bringing it back to that point. It really highlights the power we have, both individually and collectively,
Right.
to shape the future.
It's not about being passive observers. It's about actively participating in creating the world we want to live in.
Absolutely. So as we head into the new year, it's a good reminder to ask ourselves, what can I do, even in a small way, to make a positive impact?
That's such a great takeaway. Even small actions, multiplied by millions of people, can create a ripple effect of change. So as we wrap up today's deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a challenge. What positive change do you want to see in the world? And what are you willing to do to help make it happen?
I love that. Empowering people to take action. It's been a great conversation today. So many fascinating and thought-provoking stories.
It really has. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the good news you might have missed.
And remember, there's always good news out there if you look for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And hey, if you come across any good news out there,
Yeah.
share it, tag us on social media, send us an email,
Right.
whatever works. Let's spread some positivity.
Love that idea. Amplify the good. You know, before we sign off,
Yeah.
I did have one last thought I want to share.
Okay.
It wasn't explicitly mentioned in either of our sources,
Okay.
but it connects to a lot of what we discussed today.
Ooh, I love a good parting thought twist.
Right.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So we talked about eradicating those murder hornets.
Yeah.
A huge win for science and collaboration. We also touched on AI, like AlphaFold,
Right.
and its potential to solve complex problems.
Right. Both examples of human ingenuity and innovation tackling these tough challenges head on.
Exactly. So here's the thing that struck me. Both of those success stories
Yeah.
required significant investment, time, resources, expertise.
Oh.
We dedicated serious brainpower and funding to solving those problems.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
So if we can achieve those kind of results when we really focus our attention and resources,
Right.
what other seemingly impossible challenges could we overcome if we applied that same level of commitment?
Whoa. That is a big question. It's like you're challenging us to think bigger,
Yeah.
to not accept the limitations that we often place on ourselves.
Exactly. What if we approached issues like climate change,
Okay.
poverty, or disease with the same urgency and innovation that we brought to the murder hornet problem, or the development of AlphaFold? Imagine the possibilities.
It's almost like you're daring us to imagine a world where those problems aren't inevitable,
Yeah.
but challenges that we can and will overcome.
That's the spirit. We're capable of incredible things when we work together and use our resources effectively. So I'll leave you with this thought.
Okay. What world do you want to create?
Yeah.
And what are you willing to invest to make it happen?
That's a powerful note to end on. It perfectly captures what the deep dive is all about, exploring, learning, and empowering ourselves to make a positive impact on the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks again for joining us, everyone. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep believing in the power of possibility.